when I tell people that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, but that it's support, I see that from my lens. I had this huge support system, like bigger than anything, this whole roller derby community, not even just my own team, but the whole roller derby community was there fighting for me and helping me, make sure that if I went out to the bar that they were drinking water with me. And I am so grateful. And that's really what's made me turn to a space where I bolster other people and can be their support and try to be their support along their recovery journey, whatever it might look like.
Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery, where I help people heal their emotional, psychological, and spiritual wounds and make deep, lasting changes in their lives. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I'm a boundaries coach who specializes in helping women who are focused on what others are thinking and doing and neglect themselves in the process. And I have coached hundreds of people on how to build healthy boundaries using my exclusive BUILD framework. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-step recovery fellowship, and I don't claim to speak for any particular 12-step fellowship. I also don't believe that 12-step recovery is the only way to recover. You might need additional help. I'm an avid beachcomber who collects sea glass, shells, wood, and stones. I am a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially the Christmas movies. Hello, Christmas in July. I wear fingerless gloves from September to June because my hands are always cold, so I have about 15 pairs. And I get a huge kick out of counting how many days, weeks, and months there are until my birthday or Christmas at completely random times of the year. My hope is that you'll find my words concretely helpful in improving your life, whether you're in recovery or not. If you like what you've heard on this episode, please screenshot it and share it on your social media and tag me at Higher Power Coaching. This is episode 230 with guest Dr. Mo from G.E.D. to Ph.D. I am really excited to hear Dr. Mo's story today because I've never heard it. As some of you know, I work for a project at Yale University called Innovation to Impact, which trains substance use researchers on entrepreneurship, and that's where I met her. She is doing some really cool stuff in South Dakota with peer recovery coaches. I actually think I screwed up the name on that. I'm going to give you time to talk about that in a few minutes, Mo, but I just want to hand things over to Mo because I know she has a really cool story because hello, from GED to PhD. So take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much. So again, I couldn't decide where to start. So I think I'm actually going to start at the beginning and see how that works out for me. Since we decided to title this GED to PhD, I think we'll start there. I was a high school dropout. I dropped out in 9th grade. And so I didn't have a lot to go on as I was struggling with my addiction. I started using when I was quite young, probably 13, and just kind of lost my way. I wasn't listening to my compass and my internal what makes me me. And I went through lots of trials and tribulations, but I think I'm going to bounce to pieces of my life that really slingshot me into where I am today, using my PhD to advocate for others who are trying to get into recovery and be a barrier-free person and business for those. So my next slingshot was a couple of overdoses. Nothing has been scarier in my life than overdosing. And it didn't stop me from using, but it definitely put me in my place and stopped me in my tracks for a little bit. And I was able to quit using methamphetamines at about the age of 18. And I had a few run-ins with it after that, but really was able to keep in a good space. But what I hadn't done was dealt with all the things that I needed to deal with about why I was using methamphetamine in the first place, which we all know how that goes, right? If you don't deal with the things that the bad coping came from, then you just slingshot yourself to the next thing that might be your addiction. And so I was great for a while. I decided, I hadn't had any formal training for anything. I had became a single mom of 2 kids, and I became a welder. And I was like, this makes perfect sense, right? It makes decent money. It allows me to have some artistic pull. And it really fit with me. And I still love welding to this day. I worked at a shop where I worked with a lot of men, and it became a toxic place too. And I was proud of myself for two things, but hindsight, not so proud, that I stuck it out no matter what happened, that I was going to be the stronger person, that I knew I needed that money to take care of my kids, and I was not going to quit that job. I ended up getting fired. And it was honestly the best thing. If I can look back at my life, it is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm not proud of it. I don't want to put it on my resume, but in hindsight, it was amazing. I didn't have to get up at 4 a.m. I got to hang out with my kids, but I also knew that I needed to feed my kids. So it was this moment in my life where I went, okay, what is next? And I looked at what brought me to that space. And it was a little bit of my addiction and also my children's dad who struggled with addiction and what it looked like. And I just never could understand how someone that I loved became someone that treated me poorly. And so I wondered, how can addiction do that to people? How can it really change people in that way? And I decided, you know what? I want to go and I want to speak. I want to speak about my own addiction and things that had happened in our relationship and our life and help other people. And so in my off time after I got fired, I took a week off to chill. And then I decided it's time, it's go time. I got my G.E.D. And then I was reaching out to prevention places, asking them, can I come speak? What can I do? How can I help? Is there money in this? And they basically said, cool, you can share your story, but you're just this person who has no education and we really don't want you. And I was like, oh, all right. So I got my GED, which took me about a month because math is hard. Man, if you've not done math, learned it all, or done it for a while, it's hard. Anyways, so I learned math again and I got my GED and I applied at the university that I'm still at today. I got my Ph.D. I got my bachelor's degree in addiction. I got my master's degree in addiction. And then I got my Ph.D. in human development and educational psychology. And I am currently today sitting in my office at that same university as a professor teaching addiction studies. So it kind of came really full circle, right? But along that way, I ended up, as I was in my undergrad, I ended up struggling with alcohol use. And I think a portion of it was coping with the new stressors that I hadn't had to deal with. And when I talk to people about addiction and remission, I like to remind them that remission is part of the process. And this is where I can see it in my life, right? I came across stressors that I had never dealt with before, and I had no frame of reference about how to deal with them. And so alcohol became my drug of choice, if you will, to deal with those stressors instead of reaching out for support, instead of going to a meeting, instead of walking through the steps, instead of doing whatever I needed to do to keep myself healthy or telling people I wasn't healthy, or maybe I didn't even know. And then I really succumbed to alcohol addiction, and it got to a space where it was not great either. There's no such thing as Tequila Wednesday, but I was drinking for Tequila Wednesday, right? Like it got a little too far. Fortunately for me, I also joined roller derby. And so I had a full team of roller derby players that were there to help me navigate that process. So when I tell people that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, but that it's support, I see that from my lens. I had this huge support system, bigger than anything, this whole roller derby community, not even just my own team, but the whole roller derby community was there fighting for me and helping me, make sure that if I went out to the bar that they were drinking water with me. And I am so grateful. And that's really what's made me turn to a space where I bolster other people and can be their support and try to be their support along their recovery journey, whatever it might look like. Even if it's not abstinence in the harm reduction sector, just making sure that I can be there for them. So slingshotting through a bunch of stuff, I was able to stay sober. I am actually almost 13 years alcohol free and super proud of that. Within the last year, we wrote a book about alcohol and how to be mindful about drinking alcohol. What role does alcohol play in your life? How can you take a break from it? What does it look like, in all these areas? Is it society that's saying it's okay for you to drink? Is it culture? Is it a poor coping mechanism? Is it something that you used to use for fun, but now it's like, oh man, I'm drinking 4 beers tonight and I feel like crap again tomorrow kind of thing. And just using, again, harm reduction to say, hey, just pay attention to what it looks like in your life, like anything else, that mindfulness, and how we can help people in that way. So that's been really rewarding. And then as you alluded to, I met you at Yale with our telehealth platform to help peer supports or peer recovery coaches, same thing, help other people along their journey. So I'm really just trying to use all this education that I got and the research that I learned how to do along the way to help people who are in recovery, people that look and sound just like me, which can be anyone, anywhere, at any time, who can be struck with what addiction looks like and those challenges that come along with it. And even their family. I know, thinking about my mom, I remember the first time she told me, hey, I think you have a problem. And I remember the way it sounded. I remember the way it felt. And I can't imagine how she felt trying to think about what does it look like to get me help? How could she help me? What could she say? And really nothing. She probably couldn't have said anything at that time. But helping families in that way too. How can we love someone and not enable them? Let's not give them cash if they need it. Let's pay their rent. You can do that. You can still love them. And then what does it look like to truly love them for who they are? So when I teach counseling skills, I tell people meet them where they're at. But what does that look like? How do you meet someone where they're at truly? So we started a street medicine team, and last weekend was our first rounds. And that was the first time I felt like I truly met someone where they were. I was sitting on the sidewalk and I was talking to somebody who lived on that sidewalk, asking them, what medical care do you need? Can I give you a hug? Do you need a condom? Like, what does that truly look like? And so all these years I've been teaching it, and I have never been able to put it into play until last weekend, which felt great. I cried a lot, not going to lie. But being able to just have like rich conversations with people who are experiencing houselessness filled my soul, right? So being able to teach family members and peer supports, like what does it mean to reach them where they're at? How can we truly help people being those people? How do we love someone who is really hard to love? Because when we're struggling with addiction, no matter whether it's escapism or it's alcohol or it's food or whatever it might look like, it's hard to understand what they're going through. When our brain chemistry changes, when the chemicals that we're used to change, dopamine is a wonderful thing, but boy, we can really get a little crazy when we're searching for that dopamine drop. And so teaching people about how to love someone in that area has been really rewarding for me along my path as I've struggled with new challenges too. I think I might be in the world where I'm looking at what does workaholic look like? Do I meet that criteria? How can I be a martyr for others to not maybe get to the place that I might be in? We're not going to put a title on that today, but I could be there. And how can I stay safe? And how can I tell other people? And how can I not model like, here's what I've done and I'm martyring and I'm advocating and I'm also overworking. So it's not healthy what I'm doing. Don't follow my path because it's not healthy. What does healthy advocacy look like? What does healthy work life look like? Because if I am a role model for anyone, and I'm not sure that I am, but if I am, I don't want to model that either. I don't want to do that for myself. I don't want to show my kids, and I don't want to show other people that if you don't deal with your stuff, your addiction just kind of navigates to the next space and looks like the next thing. So, I mean, I really jumped around on a lot of things, but I wanted to, again, keep it light and about the awesome parts of my life that kind of slingshot me to different parts. And I guess if I wanted to say something to people in recovery, I would say like you have such a skill by being gritty and changing your mind and moving to these spaces where you keep yourself healthy, that if you feel like sharing that skill with others, it's so powerful to heal your own soul and for other people who are navigating that. So I think that would be my message to take away.
Awesome. So you said a few things that I really loved. The opposite of addiction is support. The way I've thought of it is the opposite of addiction is connection. And I think it's really the same.
Yeah.
We're saying the same thing. I love this notion of slingshotting. Love that. Like you get propelled forward in this really drastic way. I'm going to be stealing that. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. And you also used the term a houseless person. And I've always, for when I was a kid, it was bum. Then it was homeless. I heard somebody say someone who was unhoused recently, and that didn't really sit well with me, but houselessness makes so much more sense to me because, like you said, that person lived on the sidewalk. They have a home. It's on the sidewalk, but it's not a house. It's not like indoors, like we would think. So I just wanted to make those comments. Love the language that you're using. So what was different what did you learn? What were the skills? You've mentioned the word coping frequently. Like, what were the coping skills that you learned from when you got into recovery that helped you to manage your life?
Yeah, so they're all skills that I'm still working on daily.
All of us, of course. Yeah.
I think being able to be mindful. And I feel like, in the technology era, it is harder than ever to be mindful. I just got back from Hawaii, and being able to get connected to the earth again was huge for me. Being able to sit there and just listen to the waves and be able to just be me was like, oh yeah, these are things I used to do before I was attached to my phone checking emails all the time. So even while I was there, I was like refining what those skills look like, being able to reach out to others. I have a best friend who anytime my anxiety gets to where I'm like, is that even really something I should worry about? I text him, this is what I'm worried about. And now that I've said it out loud, I feel better, right? Because it's just seeing it. This doesn't even make sense. This isn't even something you should worry about. Being able to just know that I can't isolate. And not that this has ever been a thing for me, but I don't ever want it to be. So I won't allow myself to just go lay down if I don't feel good. I could go for a walk. I could go to the gym. I could do different things, but I don't want isolation to be my next coping. So I make sure that I kind of switch that, but really just reaching out to someone, which is so hard because you have to bust that ego. And I think that's where I started, right? How can I break down my ego? And I knew once I got a PhD that sometimes that goes to people's heads, right? And I have a license plate that says my name as a gift. And I often tell people like, that's not an ego thing. It was a gift, right? But it is constantly working on the ego because it slips in there and tells you things that you don't want it to tell you. But on the other side, making sure we don't listen to that little voice that can say bad things either. If you jump on the scale in the morning and it's a pound over where you'd like it to be, you don't get to say, oh, I'm this or I'm that. You have to go, okay, well, maybe yesterday I blah, blah, blah. Or maybe within the last week I ate things that are kind of out of my realm. Just having different messages, being able to input those affirmations every day. A gratitude practice has been huge for me. And I think my biggest one, my number one that my mentor taught me a long time ago was just positive thinking. I spent that whole time under my welding helmet. I worked there for 2 years. I spent the whole time reframing. I was so pessimistic. The world had just shit on me, and I was the victim. And not that I wasn't a victim to some of the things that had happened to me, but I didn't have to stay the victim. And that's kind of been my thread throughout it is I don't want to be the victim. I want to take what's happened to me and what I've went through and be someone who just helps others. So really shifting my thoughts from, my God, this sucks, to like, where is the silver lining? What can I take away from this? What lesson did I learn? Even when we were on the island, I got towed, which, that's a hard thing, right? And my kid was like, well, sometimes the island teaches us lessons. And I was like, look at you, right? Like you're 5 and you knew that. So it was cool to like know that I'm putting that into my children too. Like her knowing like, yeah, this sucks really bad and it's hot out and we don't want to be here, but we learned a lesson and we're not going to push it ever again kind of thing. So it's cool to like see how that silver lining can be passed on to others. And there's positive toxicity, which I've also had to learn not to be. But I really think the power of positive thinking and how I believed that I could be the next version of myself. And I watched me go from something that I wasn't really proud of, or maybe other people made me not think I could be proud of, to somebody that I feel like in my skin as a tattooed female who's been divorced and been through a lot and been through all these things is definitely proud of.
I love it. So there's a couple of things that you said there I loved. So I would say that you're using this as info, not ammo. So when you learn these things, like when you see the pound on the scale, it's information to integrate and learn and grow from. It's not ammunition to beat yourself up. That was a fucking game changer for me.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I've not heard that.
Yeah. And it's actually one of the most important takeaways my clients tell me that they get from me. And even though I always had high self-esteem and kind of liked myself, I realized in recovery, I was kind of like scanning the horizon all the time. Where can I beat myself up? Where can I beat myself up? And so when I heard this info, not ammo, I'm like, oh, okay, let me stop doing that. And then, oh crap, there was something else that you said that I know, it was about the isolation. So I just shared this in a meeting last night that my first year in recovery, there was a woman who said, I'm addictive and compulsive in isolation. I heal in community. So I think that isolation is something that doesn't matter what the hell kind of addiction you have. Everybody's super good at it because we're like filled with shame and all that stuff. And the connection, especially with other people that have the same addictions as we do, is the antidote to the shame, because you're like, I did the same fucked up shit that you did.
Yes.
And I don't judge you. So why would I judge me? And it really, really helps.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I love this info, not ammo. I wrote that down.
Yeah. It's really, really a huge part of my recovery, and just remembering that is important. I do want to ask a question about, so you're in your welding helmet and you're changing your thinking. Like, how did you even know that your thinking needed to change? Because so many people that I've met in recovery don't even understand there's another way to think and the power that changing their thoughts has over every single thing in their lives. Like, how did you even know?
So I met my mentor actually at a motorcycle rally of all places. And we just hit it off and we're having a conversation. And he kept catching me up in negative things that I would say. He'd be like, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about this? And I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a thought process I had never seen before. And he's like, what about, what do you think about the power of you bringing things to yourself because you bring them to fruition and like manifestation? And I was like, it was well beyond what I could understand at the time. And it stuck with me. And he was like, read this book and tell me what you think. And he suggested for me to read The Secret. And so I read it and I was like, oh, some of this makes sense. Not all of it at the time, but some of it made sense. And then as I started like watching how it could play out in my life and the way just like I felt a little lighter by not looking at the negative side all the time really helped. And so now the book, I think it's Adam Grant, Think Again. It's like, I would have paired those two together. Like, how can I take my old thoughts and how can I like just think again about things, and what does it look like to unlearn something? Because it's okay to say, hey, that thing I said was not okay 10 years ago because I didn't know any better. And like, even in my class, I'll be like, I'll say something and then I'm like, wait, maybe that wasn't right. Let me check that tonight. And I will come back to class the next day and say, hey, that thing I was telling you about fentanyl, that is not legit. I read that on the news. And that wasn't a credible source. And I am sorry. And here is our credible source. And here's some research to back it up kind of thing. But sometimes people have a really hard time, again, that ego, being able to go back and say that, but kind of having the tools to what does it look like to intake somebody else's look, right? Like if I was closed-minded, even the thing you said about info as ammo wouldn't have went in, right? I'd have been like, yeah, okay, whatever. But because I have the ability to go, ooh, what greatness can she bring to the table for me to learn too? It allows me to kind of take on some of those other thought processes as well. It doesn't mean I have to implement anything you said. It doesn't mean I even have to believe anything you said, but it does mean that I recognize that there's value in the things that you say. So I think that's kind of how I got it to switch around.
That's fantastic. So I love how your example is that it was a mentor. So in other words, connection, support, like exactly this, this is evidence and your words really matter to people. Actually, I'm going to tell this story here. So in 2019, when we had our Innovation to Impact bootcamp in person at Yale, there was a woman there who was on the younger side. She was a graduate student, whereas many of the people that were there were tenure track faculty. And every time she would ask a question, she would say something like, you may have already said this, or I might have missed this. And I went up to her separately and I said, listen, you deserve to be here just as much as everybody else. You deserve to ask any question, and you're negating yourself by saying this stuff. And I recently heard from her because I was contacting everybody to do an alumni survey. And she said to me, I don't know if you understand how important that was to me. And I have thought back to that so many times. She was working in a really toxic lab where when she asked her primary investigator for a letter of recommendation, he said, I don't think you should go on to grad school. Nobody's going to hire you with your learning disability. You should get a job.
Whoa.
And she remembered what I said to her. And she said, I'm still going to apply. Will you write me a letter or not?
Wow.
And she said, and right now she's actually transferring universities. And I think she's going to be a postdoc or something. I'm not exactly sure. But she said, I'm having a lot of the thoughts come up and I keep remembering back to what you're saying. So, and I'm saying this because you don't fucking know the impact of your words on other people. So when you drop a positive bomb on someone, like you don't know the reverberative effects, like that guy, your mentor, look what he's done. Look at all the people whose lives you've impacted by the work that you do and that you're continuing to do. Speaking of which, I want you to talk about what it is your peer support training, because there are plenty of people listening to this who would probably qualify and perhaps love to get involved. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you for that reminder from my mentor. I send him a thank you card or a thank you text about every 6 months because I know how impactful he has been in my life. And I am so grateful. You are absolutely right. Like the power of a positive word, even if it's like, well, your shirt's cool. I love your hair. How, like those little things.
Yeah, maybe they were going to commit suicide that day. Like, I don't know if you've ever read Post Secret. Do you know about postsecret.com? So really quickly, because it's not part of it, whatever, I'm just going to not really quickly. So Frank, somebody started this project like 20 something years ago because he had a couple of friends that committed suicide. He volunteered for a suicide prevention hotline. And what he found was that most people don't want to die. They want the pain to end.
Right.
And for many of them, it was this deep, dark secret that they had. And they talked to somebody and they got it off their chest. So he printed out a whole bunch of postcards with his address, and it was supposed to be an art project, and said, send me your secrets. And here, 20 years later, he does talks, especially at college campuses, and he sends out a weekly email. He has books. He has an Instagram account, and people send in their secrets. And what I've learned from this is that there's some unbelievably loving people out there. There's some weird motherfuckers out there. And there's just such a variety of human stories, and that strangers care about you, even if the people in your local area don't care about you. But more than one time, I've seen a postcard from somebody who said, I was on my way to kill myself. And somebody gave me a compliment, engaged me in a conversation, asked me a question, and I realized, oh my God, I do have value.
Absolutely.
So that positive word or question or gesture can save someone's life.
I like to ask the server, how are you doing today? And they always are like shot back from it. So like, me? What? Nobody's asked me that today. And I'm like, well, I want to know how you're doing. So yeah, I totally get it. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, very cool. I get it every week. I've been reading it for years. It's one of 2 emails that I open every week. I'm on so many email lists, but I open it. I get them on Sunday mornings and love it.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. So peer specialist stuff. So long and short, we started basically a platform to connect people who are in recovery with people who are trying to get and stay in recovery. These people that are trained, you can do the training on our platform. It's a 46-hour training. It is NADAC certified, so nationally certified. If that meets the criteria in your state, you are able to work with people on our platform, which allows you to have voice. You can do video, you can do text, you can do chat. Everything that you would need, every bell and whistle that you would need to run a business, it's on our platform. So scheduling, payment, all that good stuff, and the training as well. So we created this in order to reach people who need these services. Currently, I'm in South Dakota, and I was in Hawaii, as I said. Both of those states have no regulations, so people can get started, get trained, and start working immediately, which is fabulous. Let's make an army of people in those states to help other people. But it is something people are interested in. They're welcome to reach out to me. We have some grant programs going on so people can get the training for free. If not, it's pretty cost effective. And then the platform is just 20% of what you make. So you can pick your own schedule. You can work as much or as little as you'd like. You can set your own price. We don't pick your price. We want this to be the most barrier-free way for people who are in recovery to make a living wage and feel good about themselves, be successful and awesome, and for people who are in recovery to match with people who look like them. So we created a matching algorithm that looks like mine would be like a 41-year-old female in recovery, methamphetamine, alcohol, like maybe a survivor of abuse, whatever else fits into who I am. And then as people come on and look, they can put in that criteria and then it matches them to like maybe me and you and a couple of other women if that's what they want. And then they can say, oh, well, here's a little bit about her story and this matches most to me. And so they can click on me and schedule an appointment with me. So we have just tried to take everything that we know from research, everything that where the gaps are and everything that people are asking for as peer specialists and put it in one space to help people. That is our main goal. Everybody at my business is in recovery and we are focused on helping people get and stay in recovery.
I love it. I love it. And the name of this business is?
Straight Up Care.
Straight Up Care. So it's straightupcare.com, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I couldn't tell if you said 46 or 426.
46 hours.
46. I figured it was. I just wanted to make sure for other people. And so you said you currently have some grants for people who can't pay for the training or maybe can augment their whatever they can pay for the training. So somebody could go to straightupcare.com and get trained on how to be a paid peer specialist, and then use the Straight Up Care platform to connect to clients.
Yep, absolutely.
Fabulous. I love it.
You can either reach onto the admin link on the page at straightupcare.com, learn Straight Up Care, or you can email me at drmo@straightupcare.com. So any of those ways, let me know your situation and we can help. We are not here to be bajillionaires who don't give back, right? I'm here to help people get and stay in recovery.
I love it. I love it. And I will put links to all your stuff in the show notes. You mentioned, what was the book that you wrote?
Oh, The Alcohol Reset.
Okay, The Alcohol Reset. And you said we wrote a book, but you didn't say who the other person or people
The
was.
other author is Amelia Skinner Saint, and she is a writer, and she made it all pretty.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll put a link to that book in the show notes too. That way, if anybody wants. And then, do you want to be followed on social media anywhere? And if so, where? And we can also drop that link in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, so either one of those is fine.
Okay. And Dr. Mo at Straight Up Care, or?
That's a really great question. I think Mo Payne. Back in the day, that was my roller derby. That was my roller derby name.
Yeah, that's a cool roller derby name. Mo Payne.
Mo Payne.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll get the link from you and I'll drop it in the show notes.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. I always love being able to share.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. And we'll talk to you later.
I was recently reminded by a friend that when I first started recovery, I didn't feel lovable. I almost can't believe that I used to feel that way, and that I kind of forgot something so profound, because I truly love myself now. And I want that for everybody. If you don't love yourself, there's literally nothing that can make up for that. I created something exclusively for my private clients, since many of them don't love themselves. And I've now opened up my private vault to share it with up to 10 people individually. It's called the Self-Love Sprint. You'll grow to love yourself and truly feel worthy, so you can stop saying yes when you really want to say no, stop neglecting yourself and putting everyone else first. Stop saying all kinds of nasty shit to yourself. That is not what people who love themselves and feel deserving do. You'll stop being afraid that others will think that you're selfish for taking time to care for yourself. This is also for you if you don't really know who you are because you've always been such a fucking chameleon. Go to higherpowercc.com/love sprint. Remember, I'm only offering 10 of these, so don't wait. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did or you wouldn't still be listening, then you're gonna love the other things I have to offer. If you'd love pre-release podcast scripts and episodes before anyone else gets them, or if you'd love access to content from my private vault that I developed exclusively for my private clients, which is like having a work session with me without me actually being there, go to patreon.com/higherpowercoaching. There are 3 tiers ranging from as low as $4 up to $24 a month. You'll also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has content very similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. Please like and subscribe to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet. I'd also love it if you'd leave a review, which you can do either in the show notes or on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other people find my podcast so they can get the benefits you've gotten from listening. If someone came to mind when you listened to this particular episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run group and private coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net, where you can hop onto my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I would love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.